What's going on, Duck Nation, College Football Nation? This is UODuckBros.
Back again.
Back with another video and another episode of what we like to call prediction reaction. That's what it was. I had a problem thinking about that. Because of the fact that we were out of commission for a few weeks, we did not get the opportunity to do prediction and reaction videos properly. And we could do it for this one at least, but we didn't really get to do prediction videos for a solid couple weeks. And so, because of the fact that we're making this video way after the fact of this game, we'll at least talk about what we thought the score was going to be, and then we'll get into the actual reaction and review portion of the whole deal. So, UCLA, huh? This was supposed to be kind of the whoever loses this game is pretty much out of the question for the playoff
This
picture.
was a very, very, very important game going into this, just because of the fact that everybody had predicted that this was going to be an undefeated matchup between these two. It was going to be for complete control in the Pac-12.
Realistically, it probably should have been.
Well, but even still. And so, obviously, both of us coming off of losses in the same weekend, both at home
to teams that
we should have beaten, and so it was definitely the rubber meets the road here for both of us. And so,
this was
if you were to ask me going into this game after the Arizona game and the way we had played, my confidence level was very low. And knowing how good Brett Hundley can be and how explosive their offense at times can be, and how bad our run defense has been, I was very concerned. And I was very concerned for our offensive line. And I was concerned for Mariota's health. And
everything else.
I thought we would win, but I thought it would be a very close game. So if you were to ask me what it was going to be, I thought it was going to be like 28 to 24. I thought it was going to be a late, grinded out. Oregon was going to score a touchdown late to take the lead, and then we were going to do just enough to keep them from scoring. I just didn't feel confident in our run game. I didn't feel confident in any aspect of Oregon at that point, and rightfully so, especially after being at the game the week before and seeing how porous our defense looked, how porous our offensive line looked, and just how inexperienced in a lot of places we looked. And so I didn't really know what to expect, other than I felt like, because I'm an Oregon homer, I felt like we should win.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know anything beyond that. So how did you feel?
Well, for me, probably because I found it out a little bit earlier than you did. I still didn't feel comfortable either.
With the injuries?
Yeah, with the injury, I still didn't feel very good about this whole thing, because we had seen, even though they had lost to Utah, you had seen when they were on all cylinders, they looked scary. I mean, Hundley, they had playmakers over the top that could really get you a lot of yards quickly. Their running game is pretty good with that
Miles Jack.
Well, he wasn't really running the ball though. It's that Pierce, Paul Perkins. I keep thinking of Paul Pierce. That's a very different person in a very different sport. Perkins guy, he's a very good young back, and
very shifty. Reminds me a lot of Bishop Sankey, actually.
Yeah, in a way. And so I had this whole thing where I just, and maybe it's just because I was still down on the whole Arizona thing, that I had this feeling that it could very easily get out of hand one way or the other, and I just wasn't sure who it was going to be. But I had the feeling it was going to be a shootout of sorts, because UCLA's defense, not so hot. Oregon's defense, as of late, going into that, not so hot. Both teams had really, really bad offensive line play. I mean, two of the three worst offensive lines as far as like sack percentage allowed, like by volume or whatever. UCLA was the worst, and Oregon was third worst.
Yeah.
So
not looking good at all.
So we figured, whoever's going to be able to make more big plays is going to be the team that wins the game. And so, but I found out earlier in the week before he made his prediction, that Jake Fisher was going to be available. And so just with that knowledge alone, I was like, oh, okay, all right, it makes a big difference. It kind of sounds weird that having just one guy come back makes a huge difference, but it did. And so my prediction was going to be like a 45-42 or like a 45-38 type of game. I figured it was just going to be pretty much whoever has the ball last is going to score and win the game. That's kind of what I was thinking. I was just hoping to God it was going to be Oregon and not UCLA, but I wasn't really sure. I flipped a coin on a couple different occasions for that. So
Well, if I were to tell you going into it that we would get outgained for total yards, we'd get outpassed, we'd get outrushed.
And win.
And win.
And not even just win, but they really totally dominated that game. They really...
when you look at the statistics, we gave up a lot of rushing yards. Yeah, we gave up some passing yards. But considering against Washington, we gave up, 500 yards of passing, and against Arizona, we gave up quite a few yards through the air too, and gave up a lot of yards on the ground. I thought Oregon, for the most part in this game, looked quite a bit better in a lot of cases. Now, of course, we still gave up a lot of yards. We gave up 553 yards of total offense. So,
well, a lot of that though did come in the fourth.
It came in the fourth quarter, but we'll get to that now. I'll tell you this. We hear a lot about Brett Hundley, and we hear a lot about Marcus Mariota, and this is the second time they've gotten to face off against each other. And they both were pretty equal in their stats. They were both they both threw for over 200 yards. Brett Hundley threw for more. They completed about the same number of passes. But, again, I'll tell you, when you watch the two of them on TV, and I'm not being biased in this case, you can see the difference between Brett Hundley and Marcus Mariota. This was a big game. And Brett Hundley just... he had some good runs, and he made some plays. It's not like he didn't make plays.
Speaking of runs, he ran the ball 22 times as a quarterback in a non-triple option.
And he needed to, though.
I know, but just throwing that out there.
But the thing about it is you just saw the differences. When they needed to make a play, for the most part, they didn't make their plays. They just didn't, and that's the reason why we won the game. When Mariota needed to make a play, he made it happen. Or when we needed, a big play to happen this time,
somebody,
it happened. And, we finally got Royce Freeman going. And Thomas Tyner, even though he didn't have a lot of yards,
he made plays.
This was the best game he's played all season so far. He ran the ball really hard.
He ran downhill.
I felt like he was hitting the holes. Yeah, he hit the holes with confidence. He knew where he was going.
Well, here's the big thing: there were holes to run through.
There were.
With just having Jake Fisher back, you could see a completely different offensive line altogether. There was so much better. There was such better command of what was going on. Like the communication of what was to be happening looked so much better. And Mariota didn't get sacked one time.
And that's the key stat of the entire night, in my opinion, is you go from pretty much this entire season.
It was, 11 or 12 sacks in 2 games?
He's been sacked a buttload of times in 2 games. And then you go with what I consider to, even though they don't have a lot of sacks, they're a really talented defensive front.
There's a lot of athleticism there.
And to keep them from being in your backfield really all night and creating really any kind of pressure to where he was making mistakes, that's a big turnaround when you're talking about an offensive line just a week ago that was being talked about as the worst offensive line in the Pac-12.
They were just getting blown to bits by everybody.
Kudos to our coaches for getting our kids ready for Jake Fisher toughing it out and coming back, even though he probably wasn't 100% healthy yet, but he understood how important he is to our team and how important it was psychologically for our offensive line. Kudos to all the guys for, putting that loss behind them and not letting it dwell and not, just having a short memory and going out and playing. And they balled out, man. They looked like Oregon looked in the beginning of the season offensively. They looked like they were confident in knowing where they were going with the ball. They got the run game going. The pass game opened up, and Mariota just looked good.
Now, for me, I think biggest kudos of the whole thing, Don frickin' Tellem. You look at the box score, and they scored 31 points or whatever, but for the vast majority of that game, UCLA could not get anything going, just nothing. And it was really promising and really exciting to see that Don Pellum really made a lot of adjustments. He dialed up pressure. He had a lot. He wasn't playing so many soft zones like he was doing against Arizona and Washington State. Like he actually was sending more blitz packages to try to get pressure on Hundley, because you can't just let him get out into open space, and you can't just let him sit in the pocket and tear you apart, because he would do that if you let him. So it was nice to see that Pelham had a different idea in mind of what he wanted to do, and the execution was there. It's one thing to draw up the play, but if your guys don't execute it, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
So it was nice to be able to see the players actually be able to, force a lot of pressure plays on Hundley, a lot of contact, making him get out of the pocket and run, making him, make a lot of plays under duress, getting that crucial fumble that set up a touchdown. Getting an interception on him, like that was a lot of those things were all really important things that ended up turning into Oregon points. I mean, the fumble turned into a score. The interception by Ifo turned into a score. Those are all things that just started snowballing on UCLA at a certain point, where it really got out of hand fast, because that game was still perfectly manageable going into halftime, and then Oregon just blew the doors off pretty much in the third quarter. I mean, UCLA made the comeback in the fourth quarter. They got a quick score, and they went down. They got another score, and they got a couple. Didn't they get like a couple of onside kicks in there?
Just one.
Just the one. So I mean, if you were to just look at the box score, like, oh, it was kind of a shootout game. It was pretty close, but it was more or less complete domination throughout just about every phase of the game up until the fourth quarter, when you kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit. So it was fantastic.
And, really, when you look at UCLA going into that game, they were, either in the really high 90s, or they were perfect in the red zone offensively. When they get in the red zone, they score every time, either a field goal or a touchdown. So keeping them out of the end zone, keeping them, having them in uncomfortable situations where they missed a field goal late, and all these things that were happening was huge, because you look at a team like that's extremely efficient down there, and you're able for your defense to have some victories like that. Now they can build on that going into the next week, and that could be one of those points that we look back on the season and say, well, that right there was the reason why we're at this point now. And getting those turnovers was huge, of course, and I just felt like overall, it was a big step in the right direction from a week ago, or a couple weeks ago, where we had played Arizona and looked like a completely different team, just flat and had no energy and just looked lethargic and out of sorts. And it was a nice bounce back win. It really was. I was really pleased. I thought across the board, from the coaches to the players, much better, much cleaner. Obviously, there's a lot to work on still, because we still gave up a buttload of yards on the ground. We gave up 328 yards on the ground.
That's definitely something that needs to be worked on.
A major concern. But the key is when we needed to keep them out of the end zone, we did. When we needed a turnover, we got one. When we needed to make a play on offense, we did. So kudos to everybody, though. I just thought it was a much better week. Now, we're going to be tested, of course, this next week here. You got a much improved Washington Husky defense, at least over the last couple weeks. So we'll get into that in the next video. But it's good momentum for a game at home coming up, and
Oregon's hopes are alive still.
We're still alive.
We're still alive
in the Heisman race, still alive in the playoff hunt, and let's just keep it rolling.
So I think that we've got everything out that we needed to say. So if you're wondering why I just shrunk about 5 inches in height, I've been sitting on an ottoman this entire time, and it just about makes my knees want to explode, so I just sat down. So I lost some height there. But without further ado, this has been UODuckBros saying thank you guys for stopping by, and as always, go Ducks with an O, not
that
whatever.
Was definitely like a lopsided O.
Yeah, there we go. That's better.
I've got Down syndrome finger. I'm sorry.
All right, well,
that was politically incorrect. Oh man, we are going south.
I'm going to hell.